This is Evangelist Henry Walker. Thank you for tuning into our podcast. Or maybe listen to me on my website at henrywalker.org under audio messages. Or maybe you're listening to me on my YouTube channel. I want to start a new message today titled Rehoboth. The Father is making room for us. Let's go to Father in prayer first. Father, I thank you for another opportunity to minister to your people, Father. I ask you to use me just the way you want, Father. Let me say only what you want me to say, nothing more, nothing less. Help people open up their spirit, Father, to not only receive the word, but study the word for themselves. And we give you all the praise and the honor, Father, in the mighty name of Yeshua, by the blood of Yeshua. Satan, I rebuke you from this podcast, every succeeding podcast, and anybody listening out there. Go right now, don't return. In the name of Yeshua, by the blood of Yeshua. Again, we want to talk about Rehoboth. The Father is making room for us in these last days. Let's go to the book of Genesis 26. Genesis 26, starting in verse 1. And there was a famine in the land beside the first famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went unto Abimelech, the king of Philistines, unto Gerar. And Yahweh appeared unto him and said, Go not down into Egypt, dwell in the land which I shall tell you of. So there's a famine in the land, and the Father is saying, stay there. Hold your ground. He's saying the same thing to you and I. Stand. Hold your ground. Don't be moved. Whatever's happening in the world, if you belong to his remnant, it does not affect you. In verse 12, Isaac stayed there. And Isaac sowed in that land and received in the same year 100-fold, and Yahweh blessed him. Stay where the Father has put you until he brings you into a new land, which he's about to do for so many of us in the remnant. Every one of us in the remnant, he's bringing us into a new land, new territory, but stand still until he does so. In verse 13, and the man waxed great and went forward and grew until he became very great. For he had possession of flocks and possession of herds and great store of servants, and the Philistines envied him. For all the wells which his father's servants had digged in the days of Abraham his father, the Philistines had stopped them and filled them with earth. They were causing a problem for him. Strife was there. Every well that his father had dug, he was digging up again, and they were filling the wells with dirt. So the enemy is really moving, trying to confound them every step of the way. But in verse 22, and he removed from thence and digged another well, and for that they strove not, and he called the name of it Rehoboth. For he said, for now Yahweh had made room for us. The enemy could not follow into that area called Rehoboth. He just stands still. The Father's making an opening for us, and the devil cannot follow, and the devil's crowd cannot follow. It's like you ever see these dogs with the invisible fence. They can't go past that area. Well, the devil could, and the devil's crowd could not go into Rehoboth. In verse 24, and Yahweh appeared unto him the same night and said, I am the Elohim of Abraham your father. Fear not, for I am with you, and I will bless you, and multiply your seed for my servant Abraham's sake. And he built an altar there, and called upon the name of Yahweh, and pitched his tent there, and there Isaac's servants digged a well. Then Abimelech, the leader of the people that were striving against him, came, verse 28. They said, we saw certainly that Yahweh is with you, and we said, let there be now an oath between us and you, and let us make a covenant with you, that thou wilt do us no hurt, as we have not touched you, as we have done unto thee nothing but good, and have sent thee away in peace. Thou art the blessed of Yahweh. See, the enemy knew they couldn't go any further, and they were scared. Don't worry what's happening in the world today. No weapon formed against us shall ever prosper. Greater is the Father in us than he is in the world. When you're part of the remnant, you're in the world, but not of the world. And things are going to get worse and worse and worse because the Father's allowing us to try to bring more people to him. Let's be available for him in a greater way, whoever he leads to us, or whoever he leads us to them. So you can see that the Father made room for Isaac. He's making room for us. Just hold on to him. Just turn everything over to the Father. Turn your flesh over to the Father so he can mortify the deeds of your flesh. make you more like Yeshua, bring the fruit of the Spirit out of your life. Love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. That's Romans 8, verse 13, 29, and then Galatians 5, verse 22 to 26. Surrender everything to Him. Don't hold anything back from Him. Surrender everything to Him. Watch where He leads you. He's leading us into a place where the devil cannot follow, and the devil's crowd cannot follow. Let's go to the book of Acts chapter 12. Again, we're talking about Him making room for us. Rehoboth. Acts chapter 12. See, the Father has need of us. It doesn't matter what situation you're going through. He has need of you. All He wants you to do is surrender everything to Him so He can make us more into the image of Yeshua. That's all He wants. And He'll make something beautiful out of our lives. There's so many people out there that are looking for answers. They have no answers. They can't find anybody they can trust. They used to rely on politics, government. They used to rely on pastors. And so many of them feel like they're out there by themselves. And some are going through a wilderness experience. And a wilderness experience is such a great time because you're with the Father. And only He can help you. There's so many people out there. And so when the wilderness experience is over, then comes the promotion. You can't get a promotion without a wilderness experience. The devil's not going to hurt you. It's just the Father is just bringing you closer and closer to Him. So when the wilderness is over, we've learned certain things that will help us in that next level, the promotion. But in Acts chapter 12, verse 1, now remember in the last chapter, the Gospel of John, Yeshua said, Peter, up to this point, you can go anywhere you want, but it's going to come a point where it's going to take you where you don't want to go. But remember, follow me, He said. Last chapter of John. This is what Yeshua was talking about to Peter. Verse 1, about that time, Herod the king, about that time, this is the exact time. This is supposed to happen. The Father is a Father of preciseness. You may feel you're going through something, what's happening, but it's the Father ordained that trial for you to bring you closer to Him so He can promote you and bring you into this new area, this new anointing to help people right now because people are looking for answers. They may not be getting from anybody right now, and so the Father's saying, hey, I want to send you. Are you willing? I'm going to send them to you. I'm going to send you to them. Whatever. They have need of answers. Now, I want to use you. But I had to bring you to a wilderness experience to get ready for that new level. But He's making room for us. I read that verse 1 again. Now about that time, Herod the king stretched forth his hand to vex certain of the church. And he killed James, the brother of John, with the sword. And because he saw it pleased the Jews, he proceeded further to take Peter also. These were the days of unleavened bread. Remember, we have Passover and 7 days of unleavened bread. And when he had apprehended him, he put him in prison and delivered him to 4 quaternions of soldiers to keep him, intending after, it says Easter, but the Greek word is Pas, P-A-S-E, it's Passover. This is the Passover unleavened bread season. To bring him forth to the people. Peter, therefore, was kept in prison. And if you need any more information on the feast days, go to henrywalker.org. All those feast days are explained right there. Also, I have a book called Noon on the bottom of the message page. It talks about the feast days. Every month there's certain blessings. So before the month begins, you can read it and walk right into those blessings. As long as you submit everything to the Father, turn your flesh over to the Father, you can walk right into those blessings. And there's certain hours in the day when the Father moves the most. There's a certain hour of the day where His healing anointing is greater than any other hour. It's free. It's called Noon. And then the second book I have is the Trinity Really a Mystery, explaining the Trinity. It's the Father manifesting Himself as the Father in the Son, as the Spirit. That's making us more like Yeshua inside of us. There's only one Spirit, Ephesians 4:4. The Father is the Spirit. That's making us more like Yeshua. That sanctification process. There's 3 functions of the one Father sitting on the throne in Yeshua. Both those books are free. And it's about 300 messages on there about divorce and remarriage, the truth, women in ministry, the truth that's been so misunderstood. Powerful messages there. In verse 5, now Peter therefore was kept in prison, but prayer was made without ceasing of the assembly unto the Father for him. But when Herod would have brought him forth, the same night Peter was sleeping. between two soldiers, bound with two chains, and the keepers before the door kept a prisoner. See, he might be kind of shaking you up right now. It's time to move. There's people out there that need to hear a word. They just need to hear how much I love them and turn everything over to me. And I'm the only one sitting on the throne. People need to hear that right now. People are trying to work out their salvation. The way you work out your salvation is you turn it over to the Father, and He will start making us more like Yeshua by His Spirit inside of us. Ephesians 4:4, there's only one Spirit. It's Him. You turn the salvation process over to Him. Surrender to Him. And He will continue that sanctification process, make you more like Yeshua. And then our salvation becomes His responsibility when we're honest with Him. And He'll point out things in your life. There's pride in your life. There's jealousy in your life. And just say, Father, get rid of it. He's cleaning us up. It's all about a cleaning process, getting us ready for heaven to become more like Yeshua. Just surrender to Him. It's so beautiful and so easy. Surrender to Him. He knows what's around the corner. He'll prevent you from getting hurt. It's so beautiful to turn your life over to Him and to abide in the secret place of the Most High. And no pestilence can come near your dwelling. We are totally protected in His arm. Stop trying to think that you can do it yourself. You can't. I can't. Nobody can. We can't do anything without Him. Can't breathe without Him. Can't walk without Him. Can't talk without Him. We need Him every step of the way. Don't try to do it yourself. Always consider yourself to be a little boy, a little girl in His sight. And just sit on His lap. And when He asks you to do something, do it. He'll strengthen you to do it. There's people out there that need answers. They have no answers. Everybody they look to, who they thought they could trust, they can't trust. The Father is squeezing out there. He wants to bring more people to Him. But He's looking for somebody to be that ambassador for Him and have a word in season and out of season. Just share your experience. Share where He brought you. If you only have a chance to tell Him two things, just turn everything over to the Father. Surrender everything to the Father. And He's the one that's sitting on the throne. One on the throne. Revelation 4 verse 2. He controls everything in Yeshua. I'll read verse 6. And when Herod would have brought Him forth the same night, Peter was sleeping between two soldiers, bound with two chains, and the keepers before the door kept a prison. He was in a tough situation. Maybe you're in a tough situation. But hold on to where you are. He's not going to leave you or forsake you. He'll pull you out of that situation and bring you into a new land, Rehoboth. He's making room for you. He's making room for Peter. It didn't look that way in the natural, but the Father is about to make the natural to be the supernatural. The super to take over the natural. And behold, in verse 7, and behold, the angel of Yahweh came upon him. This is Yeshua Himself. Like He said, follow me. And a light shined in the prison, and He smote Peter on the side and raised him up and said, rise up quickly, and his chains fell off his hands. And Yeshua said unto him, gird yourself and bind on thy sandals. And so he did. And He said unto him, cast thy garment upon you and follow me. See, He'll never leave you or forsake you wherever you are. Just be honest with Him. If sin is trying to come up, temptation is trying to come up, just cast it upon the Father. He'll make a way of escape. Don't feel guilty because temptation is coming. Everybody is tempted. But stand strong in Him and His Word. And use His blood as a powerful offensive weapon, as well as defensive. Before you visit somebody, to help somebody, apply the blood to the situation before you ever get there. In verse 9, and he went out and followed him, and wist not that it was true which was done by the angel, which is Yeshua, but he thought he saw a vision. When they passed the first and the second ward, they came into the iron gate that leadeth into the city, which opened to them of his own accord, and he went out and passed on to one street, and forthwith the angel, Yeshua, departed from him. The gate opened up of His self. So the Father controls everything. He'll open up a door for you. Just be willing. Just sit in His presence right now. He's trying to do something in your life right now. That's why you're going through a wilderness experience. He's trying to make some adjustments, and the way you minister to people, whatever. He's just trying to make some adjustments and encouraging you and strengthening you in the areas that you're weak. He's getting you ready for that new level. Look what happened with Isaac. In the middle of a famine, he waxed greater and greater and greater. It doesn't matter what's happening in the economy or what the headlines are saying. Defy the headlines. Don't deny the headlines. Defy the headlines. Just walk with Yeshua. Just have a beautiful walk with him in these last days. He'll lead you to one person here, a person there, whatever. He'll lead you. There's people that need answers out there, and the world is not giving it to them. Government is not giving it to them. They need to hear from somebody in the remnant that has surrendered everything to the Father and know that he controls everything, sitting on the throne in Yeshua. That Peter went to the people that are praying for him. They were so surprised, never expected him to get out of that situation. But he did, and he was used someplace else. The Father had a place for him to go. The same thing with you. Let's go to the book of Esther. Again, talking about Rehoboth, the Father's making room for us. Esther is right after Nehemiah, before Job, kind of right before Psalms, the book of Esther. I mean, here's Esther, the niece of Mordecai, just doing her own thing, living their normal life. And so the Father had need of them. Father wanted to make room for them. Rehoboth. They're looking for a replacement for the queen. In chapter 2, Esther chapter 2, verse 5. Now in Shushan palace there was a certain Jew whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, a Benjamite. Now you might remember with Saul, King Saul, how he was going to battle with the Agagites. He kept the enemy king alive, didn't kill him, and kept cattle and so forth, where the Father had spoke to Samuel, don't let anybody live. And don't take any cattle, don't take anything. And so Saul was from Kish, the family of Kish. Now we know about Haman in chapter 3, verse 1. And after these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him. So Haman was from the Agagites, the same group of people that Saul spared the king. And Saul was from Kish. Here's Mordecai from Kish. And Mordecai was so instrumental in having Haman destroyed. So the Father always gets his man. That one enemy Agagite that Saul didn't kill, Samuel had to kill. Now here's somebody from Kish, the family of Saul, destroying that Agagite. Haman, that's amazing. How many years later, but he did it. That one Agagite. The Father has everything under control. And so Esther was chosen to try out to be queen, and she became queen. So Esther was taken into King Ahasuerus into his royal house in the 10th month. See, the number 10 means something is cut off. So anything that would try to stop Esther from becoming queen was cut off. Verse 18, and King made a great feast unto all the princesses and his servants, even Esther's feast, and made a release to the provinces and gave gifts according to the state of the king. And Mordecai saved the king's life. Two guys were trying to kill him. Mordecai told it to Esther, saved his life, and it was put in the book of Chronicles. It was very important. And so Haman hated Mordecai because Mordecai wouldn't bow down to him. And he wanted to kill all the Jews. And he had a decree signed on the 13th day of the first month, Nisan, to kill all the Jews. And he tricked the king into signing it. Mordecai went to Esther. And Esther said, pray for me for 3 days. Pray and fast for 3 days. And he did. But that be bringing up to Nisan 16. Then Esther went into the king unannounced. Look how the Father's making room for her. It took courage for her to do that, because if she went into the king unannounced and he didn't stretch forth the golden scepter, she could be killed. But he did. He said, whatever you want, Esther, I'll give you even half the kingdom. He said, I want to have a feast tonight, just me, you, and Haman. That was the 16th of Nisan. And at the end of the feast, he said, now what else you want me to do? Well, I want to have another feast tomorrow on the 17th, me, you, and Haman. Of course, Haman was so excited and everything. On Nisan 17 is a special anointed day. Yeshua rose on Nisan 17. The Red Sea opened on Nisan 17. Noah's Ark rested on Mount Ararat on Nisan 17. It's all in my book called Noon, as I mentioned before. That Esther revealed to the king what Haman had done. They hung Haman, and the ring that Haman had, he put on Mordecai's hand. Mordecai became the second in command. Now, still the decree was signed to to kill all the Jews. But now Mordecai drafted a law for the king to sign where the Jews could defend themselves. And so many people became Jews because of Mordecai, and they were scared, and the Jews defended themselves and won great victory, and that's how Purim came about. Like in chapter 9, verse 2, the Jews gathered themselves together in their cities throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus to lay hand on such as sought their hurt, and no man could withstand them, for the fear of them fell upon all the people. And all the rulers of the provinces and the lieutenants and the deputies and officers of the king helped the Jews because the fear of Mordecai fell on them. For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went out throughout all the provinces. For this man Mordecai waxed greater and greater. Thus the Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword and the slaughter and destruction, and did what they would unto those that hated them. Look at how the Father raised up two people, Mordecai and Esther. He made room for them out of nowhere. There had to be thousands of women that were auditioning to become queen. But the Father wanted Esther, and nobody could stop Esther from being queen. Nobody can stop you from what the Father is asking you to do. Nobody. Nobody. Just allow him to make us into the image of Yeshua. He'll give us the strength, the power, the knowledge, the wisdom that we need. But go into that new land he has for you. You've been standing on his word. You've been listening to these podcasts. You've been studying these podcasts, studying my messages. You've been standing. Now it's time to go into that new area with a new anointing. You're coming out of that wilderness experience. And remember, no weapon formed against you shall prosper, because greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. Who can stop you? The Father doesn't want to stop you. He's the one that's giving the impetus to go now. In chapter 10 of Esther, verse 3, for Mordecai the Jew was next unto the king Ahasuerus, and great among the Jews, and accepted of the multitude of his brethren, seeking the wealth of his people, and speaking peace to all his seed. Look at that. Look how the Father raised two people out of nowhere, the least likely. And it's like a team. Together, everyone accomplishes more. Mordecai and Esther, a beautiful team. Together, everyone accomplishes more. See, the Father wants us to join up with other people in the remnant and work as a team, network. There's so much work to be done, but such little time because he's coming back. Things are getting worse and worse because it's getting closer to him coming. He wants us to be ready for him, but also to help other people to get ready for him. See, if we have turned everything over to the Father, he'll make sure we're ready. But now we just got to be that ambassador and go to other people as he leads us to help other people. It's important. Again, if you meet somebody new and you find out that they're believers, just say, hey, the Father's dealing with me about turning everything over to him, surrendering everything to him, making us more like Yeshua. You say Jesus, Yeshua. And I know he's the one that's sitting on the throne. He's got everything under control. There's only one on the throne. He's in Yeshua. He's in Jesus. Tell them. It's important. If you can only get that out, it's really a great foundation for the Father to build on. And he'll make them more like Yeshua if they surrender everything to him. He's doing it with you and me and others. He can do it with them. But it's important in these last days. We can't get to heaven on our own strength. We have to turn it over to him. Because he's the way, the truth, and the life. He's the one that's going to lead us right into the rapture. And we're going to see him. We're going to behold him. We're going to see him as he is. Just turn with me to 1 John chapter 3. First Epistle of John chapter 3. Right before Jude and Revelation. 1 John chapter 3, verse 1. Behold, what manner of love the Father had bestowed upon us, that we should be called the sons of the Father. Therefore the world knoweth us not, because it knew him not. See, the world didn't know him as the Father, Yeshua. Beloved, now are we the sons of the Father, and it does not yet appear what we shall be, but we know that when he shall appear, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. This is the Father in Yeshua. The Father's not sending Yeshua. He's coming in Yeshua. So we want to be ready for that. And He will make us ready. As we turn everything over to Him, He will make us ready. So it's so important. So we can see today we're talking about how the Father wants to make room for us. Rehoboth. The Father wants to make room for us. And He is. He's doing it right now. Again, talking about Esther and Mordecai. Two unlikely people. Just made room for them. Let's just go to the book of Exodus, chapter 3. Book of Exodus, chapter 3. Right after Genesis, the book of Exodus, chapter 3. Starting in verse 1. Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest in Midian, and he led his flock to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of the Father, even to Oreb. And the angel of Yahweh, this is Yahweh himself in a body, Yeshua, appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of the bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. Look at your life. It hasn't been consumed. The devil said he's going to get you, but he hasn't got you. It's a demon in wrong focus. Wants you to focus on what he's saying instead of what the word says. Resist Satan, submit to the Father, and he will flee. In verse 3, and Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight why the bush is not burned. See, the Father got his attention. The Father knows how to get our attention. He's getting our attention that He has a new level for us, a new promotion, a new area called Rehoboth. He's making room for us. The word says that we've been through the fire. We've been through the waters, but it's bringing us into a wealthy place. It's not only riches, it's the anointing to help so many people. In verse 4, when Yahweh saw that he turned aside to see, the Father called him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses, he said, here I am. When the Father mentions somebody's name twice, it is very, very important. Like Saul, Saul, Simon, Simon, Samuel, Samuel, Moses, Moses. Trying to get their attention. Take your shoes off. This is a special ground. Verse 6, moreover he said, I am the Elohim of your father, of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Moses hid his face for he was afraid to look upon the Father. Verse 7, and Yahweh said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of the taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. See, the Father's heard the cries of the people in the world, and He wants to send His remnant to help them, or send the people to the remnant. Whatever, we need to be moving out into a new land. Rehoboth, He's making room for us. The time is short. Again, just as a foundation to tell people to say, the Father's dealing with me about turning everything over to Him, my flesh, everything, surrender everything to Him. And He wants to make us more like Jesus, Yeshua. And He's the one that's sitting on the throne controlling everything. At least if you can say that, you give Him a start to a proper foundation. But time is short right now. Everything that people are looking to is failing, except Yeshua. They're looking for help. Look for somebody to give the answers. There's no way of going back to the normal. This is a new normal. This is brand new right now. It's new ground. It's surrendering everything to the Father. He's got everything under control. He wants to reach people before the sound of the trumpet. He's not willing that anybody should perish, but He's looking for us to be His mouthpiece, His hands, to lay hands on people. Just be willing. If you're willing and obedient, you can eat the fat of the land, help people. Just be willing. It's not your own strength. You can't figure out how to help that person, but allow Him to use you, to give you the words to say. Again, but basically, if you can just get the foundation that, hey, you're a believer, I'm a believer, He's dealing with me about turning everything over to Him, my flesh, so He can make us more like Jesus, Yeshua. Bring the fruit of the Spirit out of me. Love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. At least if you tell Him the fruit, you don't have to mention every one of them. And say, He's the one that's on the throne. There's one, Revelation 4:2, one sitting upon the throne in Yeshua. He's got everything under control. So at least you get that foundation. The Father can build on it. even with you not even with them. Every believer should have that as their foundation. So you're helping to make sure that they have that foundation. It's very important. In verse 8, and I'm come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land into a good land and a lodge unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanites, the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. It says, I see how they're oppressing my people. See, the Father sees what's happening in the world, that his people are being oppressed. And he wants to send us to help them. Say, hey, I'm with you. I'll strengthen you. Just turn everything over to me. It's a very simple, powerful message. Turn everything over to the Father so he can mortify the deeds of the flesh, make us more like Yeshua, bring the fruit of the Spirit out of our lives. And he controls everything. The one sitting upon the throne in Yeshua. Revelation 4:2. It's important. Will you be that one that goes? I'm encouraging you to do so. I have so many subscribers, and you've been listening for a while, and this is important. You learn so much. I have my books on the website. I have my messages to help you. Point people to henrywalker.org. It's important that we help to equip people in these last days. Because this is the end of everything. This is the end of everything and a new beginning. The rapture is approaching and the tribulation right there. It's important that we want to pull people out of that fire of the tribulation before they even gets here. We want to help people get into that rapture before the door closes. And Moses said, who am I that I'm going to set the people free? He said in verse 14, as we close, and the Father said unto Moses, I am that I am. And he said, thus shall you say unto the children of Israel, I am has sent me unto you. I am that I am. Whatever you need him to be, he'll be there for you. But do what he says. Get ready to march. Get ready to go to what he asks you to do, that new level. You've been through the wilderness. Again, you've been through the water. You've been through the fire. Now he's bringing you to a wealthy place of his anointing. Right before the last trumpet. So it's important. So, again, we're talking about going into Rehoboth. He's making room for us, a new level, a new promotion, an area where we can help more people. Just allow him to do so. If you don't think you can do it, it's a good attitude because we can't do it without him. But let's go to Father in prayer right now. Put your hand on the computer or on your cell phone and believe with me. If you don't know that you're saved, just say it to me. Say, Father, I believe Yeshua died for me. I turn my flesh over to you. Mortify the deeds of my flesh. Make me more like Yeshua. Bring the fruit of the Spirit out of my life. Love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Come into my spirit. Fill me with your Spirit to overflowing so I can help other people. Bring me to the people that you want me to help, Father. I'm making myself available. If you said that prayer, you're ripe for a miracle. Now, let's believe for a miracle, a personal miracle for you. But we want to lift up the unborn children in the womb. Life begins at conception. Father, touch those babies, Father. Bring them to full birth. And people have a need right now. Any disease, any growths, any tumors that are represented out there, I curse you all. Growths, tumors, diseases. I curse you all. I command you all to die right now. Disappear and don't return. In the name of Yeshua, by the blood of Yeshua. Father, touch people by your stripes. They are healed. Touch us all, Father. Strengthen us. Satan and anything and anybody is not the Father. Get away from every aspect of our lives, us and the remnant. Go right now and don't return. In the name of Yeshua, by the blood of Yeshua. Touch us physically, Father. Spiritually, mentally, financially. Touch every aspect of our lives. We're asking that every area of our lives line up with your word, Father. In your name, Father, the mighty name of Yeshua, by the blood of Yeshua. And we thank you, Father, for miracles right now. And we're thanking you and praise you for all the miracles you're doing right now, Father. If you enjoyed this podcast, tell other people about this podcast. If you want to email me, go to contact@henrywalker.org, contact@henrywalker.org. If you have any praise reports, any questions. And remember till next time, this is Evangelist Henry Walker saying, greater is the Father in you, your daddy, than he is in the world.